Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So just going to give it maybe 10 or 15 seconds. I can see a few people streaming in from the waiting room into joining us. So I'll let everyone just get their coffees and get comfy, and I look forward to getting started very shortly. Just for a brief bit of housekeeping, everyone who signed up will get a recording sent to them. I will also have some follow-ups to send across to you guys as well. If you have any questions or comments or anything else like that, please use the chat or the QA functionality. Hopefully, we'll have some time towards the end of the presentation to cover any questions that we do get. But please, interactive as possible always makes it easier for myself and Frank, who's presenting today, uh, to kind of cover the topics you guys want to cover and make sure you're getting what you want out of it. So with that, let's get started. So today we're talking about automating, protecting, and recover. So backup for Nutanix made easy and made easy. So with HYCU and OVHcloud. So my name is Chris Rogers. I'm a senior product marketing manager here at HYCU, and I cover all of our hybrid cloud products. So Nutanix, Dell, Azure Stack HCI, or Azure Local as it's called now, and all the things that kind of land in data center and IaaS as well. And joining me is Franck Costa. Frank, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I can. So hello, I'm Franck Costa. I'm a group product manager at OVHcloud, and I'm taking charge of a small group of PMs to for our solution private cloud like Nutanix, VMware, backup solution, and everything related to Secnum Cloud environment.
Amazing. Thank you, Frank. So briefly on the agenda, just to go run through about what we can expect from today. So we're going to do a little brief bit about HYCU, some of the HYCU principles that we follow, a bit on the past, the present, and the future. HYCU and the OVH use cases. The HYCU Nutanix a little bit under the hood, so going a little bit deeper into some of the areas that we do cover. Then OVH are going to take over and do an overview of their organization, and then if we have time, hopefully we'll be able to do a quick demo so you guys can see the HYCU UI and just see some of the cool unique functionality we do have. So with that, let's dive straight in. So a brief bit about HYCU. So we're not a startup. Maybe some of you on the call maybe haven't heard of HYCU before, or maybe not one of the biggest players in the game. But actually, when you look at some of the stats and some of the things on the board here, you can see we're across 78 countries globally, over 4,600 customers choose us to protect their most critical data, all the way from Nutanix on-prem, all the way through to SaaS, cloud, and IAM as well. We've been named a visionary in the Magic Quadrant for for enterprise backup and recovery for 3 years running. And the one thing we're massively proud of here is that we have an NPS score of 91, which is pretty much the highest in the industry. So everything we do, we try and make sure we focus all of our efforts to maintaining that 91 NPS. Over 440 plus partners worldwide, and some real strategic technology partners, such as obviously Nutanix here and Dell, and obviously OVH that are on the call with us today. And if you look at our industry recognition, we've mentioned the NPS score, we've mentioned Gartner already. Then you look at some of the other awards we have won, and these are just the most recent ones. From some last year, Google Cloud Partner of the Year, a leader in the GigaOm Cloud Native Data Protection Radar report, and the list goes on and on. I don't have enough room on the slide to put all the other ones we've won over the past few years as well. But just to kind of give you guys an understanding that we are well established in this area, and especially on the niche areas we do cover, like Nutanix and Google, we're very strong, incredibly strong, almost market leader, if not market leader. And if we look at HYCU OVHcloud, so OVHcloud is Resilience Cloud. We are the #1 data protection platform for Nutanix out there. So we have a deep integration with Nutanix. We've got validated blueprints and designs with them. We're incredibly secure, so we're the only data protection vendor to have a DISA STIG. That may not relate so much in Europe, but in the US, DISA is a defense agency, essentially. It's a bit like the FBI and the CIA and all those types of agencies. But they're a STIG as a secure technical implementation guide, which means we're accredited to be running on all these federal platforms to the highest level of security. And as you can see here, the Nutanix Ready AHV integrated, obviously, as I've mentioned, we have the blueprints as well. And we cover all the things around the circle, plus a load more as well that you can see. And most recently in January, we added NDB protection, so Nutanix database protection to our portfolio, being the first and only vendor to support that. And if we take a look at some of the HYCU customers that we do have, so from all different parts of the world, all different industries, all different sizes of organizations. And the one I've left out in the middle is probably the biggest one. because actually Nutanix IT themselves use HYCU to protect their data running on Nutanix. So if you can trust Nutanix for your production workload, you can trust that Nutanix trusts us. So we're well vetted in that escape. And if we look at the HYCU principles, so what are when we're developing or building or looking at our product, what are our principles we need to build against to make sure it meets our customers' requirements, customers' outcomes, and again maintain the NPS score and make us a leader in the segment. So the first one being it has to be intelligently simple. And I say intelligently simple because I think simple gets overused a lot. I can make something incredibly complex very simple by breaking it down into very small chunks, right? So I'm driving from my house in near London up to, Edinburgh in Scotland. There's 150 turns I need to take. If I put those on one by one, that's a simple set of instructions to follow, right? But it's still overall quite complex to do and time consuming. Intelligently simple is me booking an Uber and I press where I want to go, and everything's done for me. And that's what we like to do here at HYCU is everything should be easy, intuitive, easy to use, maintain, deploy, and everything automated as much as possible to take the strain away from the user. Everything has to be deeply integrated. So we don't just add on and bolt on and stick things onto the side of our product. Everything we do and we build is integrated with the native APIs, often with best design principles, or even co-developed with Nutanix themselves sometimes. We want to make sure that our backup product doesn't cause any impact to production workloads. That seems like a strange thing. It seems an obvious thing. But we want to make sure that we don't interfere with what your day-to-day operations are happening. So we need to make sure that everything we have has no impact. So no stunning, no agents to deploy on virtual machines that could crash or cause performance issues, no additional software or hardware required um on your in your data center or on your virtual machines. We want to make sure it's seamless. We want to make sure everything is tested, works properly. Um, Everything is designed in a way that people would like to use. So it's a seamless process. A bit like when everyone says, "Oh, the iPhone user experience is seamless." We're exactly the same. We want to make sure every time you click something, you know what you're expecting to happen afterwards. Obviously, it has to be secure. We run a very secure appliance that you install a virtual appliance, which we pre-harden. So every single customer gets a pre-hardened appliance. So you don't have to do that afterwards. We maintain that security of that for you. We're going to make sure your data is immutable, offsite, isolated, with anomaly detection and validated. All those types of things we can do with Nutanix and HYCU. Has to be scalable. We want to support the customers from, the smallest customer all the way up to the biggest customer. And with that, it has to be effortlessly scalable because organizations grow, shrink, change, morph over time. So when you put a solution in, we need to make sure that we can either grow with that organization, shrink back down. We're not leaving, loads of legacy stuff left over that isn't needed anymore. We want to make sure that we're right fit all the time. You have to maintain data control. So with the data processes, we'll help you back it up and protect it. But overall, customer is key to this. Make sure they put their data where they want. And probably Frank will cover this in a bit more detail later on, but even more prudent when it's done when we start talking about data sovereignty and one of OVH's specialties of making sure that we don't put our data into somewhere we don't want it to, especially in the European market. That's even stricter. And I will come to that in a minute when we talk about the OVH piece in a bit more detail. And it has to be cost effective, right? There's no point in us building the best solution out there for Nutanix, but it's too expensive for anyone to afford, so we don't sell anything, right? No one ever gets to use the great technology that we do have, and we don't get to fix all the problems that our customers come to us with. So those are our HYCU principles, and hopefully you'll see those throughout the presentation. You'll see where we are simple, where we're integrated, where we're seamless, where we give control back, where we do scale. All those things you'll come to see in the future slides. So I wanted to cover a little bit on the past, the present, and the future of HYCU. So the first one is pioneering the past. So we kind of built Nutanix data protection industry, right? So we were there before it was cool. Like the band you saw when they were only in that like tiny little venue, and now they're doing Glastonbury, right? You were there at the beginning, but that's essentially how we feel about Nutanix data protection. We pioneered this industry. We're not ones that are jumping on the bandwagon from the recent news in the last couple of years about the hypervisor landscape. We've been here from the beginning and will continue to be here as well. So you can see all the way from 2017 all up to 2024 and even onwards to this year, 25, 26, 27 onwards, you'll be able to see we are first and best in market with a rich history of innovation with Nutanix as well. And then move on to the present. So we have the widest coverage, the deepest integration, And therefore, we are the ultimate Nutanix data protection solution. We cover more workloads than any other data protection vendor in the marketplace. We have the deepest integration and probably the closest relationship with Nutanix as well. And we can forge the future. So we have a committed joint roadmap and development with Nutanix, so you can make sure that if you're putting in Nutanix and Haiku today or yesterday or 10 weeks ago or 2 weeks in the future, you can be sure that you're future-proofing your investment in both of those technology stacks. So if Nutanix are building out something brand new that maybe you've not even heard of, maybe it's the AI stack or cloud security, whatever else it might be, you know that Haiku are going to do their very best to be able to support that moving forward to make sure you protect your workloads as best possible. So I know I'm talking a lot, but we've got loads of slides and some really great content. So I want to make sure that we get through the slides. We've got time for questions and hopefully the demo later on as well. So Haiku and OVH. So I've got this slide. I'm just going to give a brief overview, and then I'm just going to ask Frank to comment as well, just on an OVH a little bit more. So on the left-hand side, we have our customer and partner environment, right? So virtual machines, applications, OS stack, files, objects, databases, SaaS workloads, whatever it may be, whatever that data is. And then we can process that through Haiku and land that on OVHcloud, right? So that's one use case is backing up from customer data center into OVHcloud or migrating that data into OVHcloud as well. But we also have the ability to OVHcloud has their own production data centers, right? So Frank, could you cover that just briefly for us, just to kind of give an overview of, the offerings that Nutanix have in their sorry, offerings OVHcloud in the Nutanix portfolio for
Y-
for for people.
Yes, I will do on the slide that we have after that, but yes, I can just sum it up here. So we offer currently Nutanix to set up an entire environment ready to use in OVH Cloud on data centers. And you have a lot of different configuration of hardware to manage and to use that. And on top or side of Nutanix part, we have an object storage solution that customer can rely on with everything that you have on the market, like the version, the immutability part, and everything. So everything is on the shelf, and the customer can consume this part as he wants.
Amazing. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Frank. Just give everyone an idea about what we're saying when we're saying, you can back up to OVH Cloud. Yeah, using the OVH object storage, as Frank said, completely immutable, isolated, all those types of things you'd expect from an object store, but also in the locations you want it as well. So it's not just in the data centers in America or whatever else that those big hyperscalers want you to choose. It's wherever you want it in your local regions as well. So we can obviously back up store data in there and then replicate between those buckets or back up to both buckets or do disaster recovery between those sites. All those different options available with OVH and Haiku. So it does really give you a great understanding and a great benefit to be able to use them as, your disaster recovery site, your tertiary site, your production site, or your burst site, whatever you want from OVH Cloud, they can provide that in your Nutanix environment. You think of it essentially as like, like NC2 a little bit, like you can just move straight into that cloud environment, an environment you understand, bring your tooling with you in data centers that you don't have to invest in, right? They've already got the kit, they've already got the data centers, they've got all the bits on hand, deploy and ready to use. Super simple. So I wanted to look at Haiku and Nutanix under the hood a little bit. So I wanted to just kind of show you a little bit of architecture and then go through some of the use cases and some of the different areas that we cover. This isn't expansive. Obviously, I don't have 4 or 5 hours to talk to you guys around all the things that we can do with Nutanix. So I've chosen some of the highlights that I think are important to kind of show people and really to kind of highlight those principles that we discussed earlier. So this is, I'm going to call it legacy, but also VMware centric architectures. So if we look, it's a bit of complex picture, but in the middle, bottom left, we have our AHV, ESX, vCenter, physicals, NetApp and Dell workloads, right? Whatever that may be. And on top of that, we have a backup server serving some backup stuff. But then when we look at the additional things that most legacy or VMware-centric architectures require, they're going to need backup proxies, data movers. Then we have a central manager to potentially have multiple backup servers underneath. We then have a separate reporting server. And then if we want to start moving things to object storage or cloud storage, we're going to need storage connections or cloud proxy gateways. Potentially most of this is potentially built on Windows or using expensive SQL storage, SQL databases as well. You can start to see how one backup product can start growing across all of your estate and consuming expensive resources. And that's not even mentioning the fact that maybe on half of your VMs, you're going to need agents to process certain data as well. That leads to an incredibly complex deployment. You think all of these things have to talk to each other, have to be architected, have to be, sized to the right degree. Otherwise, things aren't going to work properly. And we're going to have backup performance or backup failures, that type of thing. So when you think about it as an actual architecture, it's very much like building a house or building like a cathedral or something, right? You've got these structural pillars that have to have the certain load and be sized the right way, and windows have to be put in the right place for it to provide enough light and all those types of things. It's a really complex overall architecture, which is incredibly hard to do. And then on top of that, you've got then the additional management of all of those pieces, security upgrades, patches, all those bits and pieces that need happening. Lengthy upgrades to upgrade not one component, but 15, 20 components, and expensive. Expensive to run all of these components, but also expensive to license all these components as well. And then if we flip that and look at a modern HYCU approach, so I like to call this zero architecture. So again, we still have our workloads on there, AHV, ESX, vCenter, physicals, NetApp, Dell, whatever you want to back up, we can cover all of those. Um, and then we have HYCU. So we essentially replaced that backup server that we had with our all-in-one appliance, and that's all you need. So suddenly we're going from somewhere we have to fully architect something to make it work into, I like to call it, zero architecture or architectureless, right? We're like a shipping container. It's purpose built to do one job, which is back up your data on Nutanix effectively. You pop it in and you connect it, and away you go. Very similar to a shipping container. All it does is ship things around the world. It has one job and it's incredibly good at it. There's nothing better at it in the world, and it does it incredibly well. It's simple, but perfect for its use case. We're exactly the same. We're simple, but perfect at our use case. We don't need additional proxies, agents, or any of those things. So essentially near zero maintenance. So extremely simple to deploy, and upgrades are done in minutes. We run as a single VApp with zero licensing costs because we run on a secure Linux operating system. We're designed to scale either up or out if you need us to. So you can have additional HYCU controllers deployed if you really wish, or if you're running at an extremely large scale, you can deploy those, but you don't have to if you don't want to. We're a one-stop shop. We build in our reporting, self-service, multi-tenancy, security. All of that is built into the appliance, so no other things you need to add. It's incredibly cost efficient because we have that one appliance, so we're not having to worry about the total cost of ownership of all these other components and licenses and everything else. It is purpose built for Nutanix, right? So we protect, as we mentioned earlier, the widest and deepest coverage of Nutanix workloads. And as you can see here on the right-hand side of that picture, we can store in any storage you want. And that's really a piece that we come back to those principles again. So, cost effective, a simple user experience, everything is seamless to deploy, secure, but also data control. You decide where you're storing your data in any of the things listed there, and even more, right? So obviously OVHcloud is a very popular one for our customers to use because it does offer that, immutability, tamper proof, but also in the locations that people require. Germany, for instance. I know the UK is very very touchy about that now, obviously, since what happened with Brexit and all the other things that happened. I won't mention that on this, but you can see here we're giving people the control of their data back and to store it wherever they want, and that's really, really important. And then we look at the application-centric protection. So, we all run infrastructure and AHV and Nutanix and everything else to run applications typically. What applications are, they're quite complex, but we need to make sure we understand the complexities of those. So we have a patented auto discovery of applications. So essentially, you give us credentials for your virtual machines, and without any agents or plugins, we go and discover all your applications, and then we know how to back them up properly. So we give you that app consistency without all the headache that comes with the typical app consistency requirements, like agents and proxies, etc. And then we also have the rapid recovery options. So inside of HYCU, you can configure rapid recovery, and that means we can restore data back, almost instantly back directly into production using the Nutanix native snapshots as well. And if you do have custom applications that aren't off the shelf like SQL, Oracle, or MySQL, whatever else it might be, if you have custom apps, maybe developed in-house or it's something a bit more legacy, we actually have an extensible framework for you to have pre and post scripting to maybe pause database or put everything into sync to then back it up. Whatever you need to do to make sure that application can be backed up effectively, you can do that using our extensible framework as well. So I'm hoping this all makes sense, guys. If you do have questions, put them into the chat, put them into the Q&A. We'll make sure that myself and Frank answer them at the end as well. And then Nutanix files. So again, as we start looking towards Nutanix and their ecosystem, most other organizations and vendors, when you start talking Nutanix, they're solely focused on AHV. They'll say, oh yeah, Nutanix and it's a virtual machine running AHV. But when you look at the ecosystem, there's far more around for the Nutanix, not just virtual machines, right? So in this instance, we're going to talk about Nutanix files. So 100% agentless. So we use the Nutanix file snapshot based backups. So super quick. Zero impact on your file servers, so we can back them up without the performance loss that typically comes with backing up file servers. Multi-terabyte with millions of files, easily done. We actually co-developed the change file tracking API that we use with Nutanix to do that instant incremental backup. So we don't have to trawl through the whole file system again to see what's changed and compare. We essentially call an API that we help build, get the stuff that's changed in the last day, whatever it may be, and back that up simply. We can load balance across those file server nodes that how Nutanix deploys them. So again, we don't have to worry about hammering one node and that's going to have suffer from performance issues. We can load balance automatically across all of those nodes, and we have that efficient file recovery. So if you do want individual files or folders from any location, you can put that straight back into those Nutanix files as well, and simple. So you can start seeing how we're building a very effective case for simple, easy to use backup and recovery that's relatively automated across your entire Nutanix ecosystem. And the last thing, maybe not the last thing, there's another thing I want to cover here is HYCU for NDB. So the first and only data protection vendor for Nutanix database. So we are purpose built for NDB. So we're using Nutanix APIs, and again, no agents involved. As I mentioned here, first and only backup for NDB. And we can automate backups within minutes and recover fast with confidence. So you can see here for NDBs, we tap into things like Time Machine and make sure that when you're backing up NDB databases, we know about them at HYCU, and we customize our workflows to make sure we put them back as NDB databases in the right place with the right formats to make sure we don't break any of those production systems as well. So we understand that it's an NDB system, and we take the precautions needed to back up that unique system. So now we're going to start talking about, I'm going to say like disaster recovery, but as your business scales and modernize, you might need to expand into secondary data centers, potentially public cloud like OVH, or even into robo sites as well. Maybe you have more than one primary data center. So if we look at this slide's a bit all over the place, but essentially if we look at remote office and branch office or robo, using Nutanix replication, sometimes can be quite complex to figure out how to do data protection effectively at remote office sites. So if you have your core data center, pick a place in the world, Germany, for instance, then you've got remote office sites all around the world. You've got Singapore, China, whatever else it might be. Some of those might be very small, some of them might be large, but some of them are going to be remote, some of them are going to be really good connectivity, some of them are going to have loads of data, some of them aren't, right? They're going to be completely unique. But what we can do at HYCU, instead of having to deploy backup servers and in backup infrastructure and even potentially hardware, all those types of things at those remote sites, we actually can use the native Nutanix replication. So you replicate from robo sites into your core data center using the native Nutanix replication. And this could actually be replicating into an OVH data center, for instance. So it doesn't have to be your own data center. You could replicate into OVH. And then HYCU can take backups from those replicas. So what does that really mean? What does that boil down to? What's the benefit? Well, the benefit of that is we don't have to worry about having HYCU installed at all those different robo sites, right? We just have a central HYCU controller like that architecture, that zero architecture design that we discussed earlier at our core data center. And then we're using that native Nutanix replication, which is very efficient, to replicate that data across into into our core data center. And then we're taking backups from those replicas. So we don't have to have all of the backup infrastructure at the robo sites. We also don't have to utilize any more bandwidth. So that replication that's happening with Nutanix is the only copy of data that's going across the wire into those data centers, and then we're backing up those replicas. And typically, what you'd see from VMware-centric or legacy providers is they would just deploy their solution at each of those robo sites, right? And then you're then maybe storing that data in your data center. So then you have Nutanix replication going back for potential DR or other purposes. And then you've got backup infrastructure going across that wire as well. So you're duplicating data, duplicating bandwidth, all for no reason. So incredibly low TCO with us, with low management overhead, because you only have that one piece of HYCU to maintain and control. And again, we don't have to worry about extending your WAN usage because we're already using the data that's flowing over the WAN. And then I want to just talk about our multi-cloud protection, or multi-hybrid cloud, I suppose. So again, if you've got two on-premise infrastructures running Prism, AHV, NDB files, NKP, whatever else you're running in the Nutanix ecosystem, IQ can back up, replicate, recover across all of those places. But then where it gets really interesting is when we can start replicating that into secondary storage in OVHcloud, AWS, Microsoft Azure, but then also start then deploying and using those places for disaster recovery workloads. So running, straight into NC2 onto Azure AWS, or in OVH's private cloud environments where you've got Nutanix stood up, you can store that data in OVH's S3 storage, for cheap, deep storage, keep it for as long as you need, and then spin that out into an OVH Nutanix cluster when you need it. So giving you that, on-demand capacity when you require it. Or you're even using it as a secondary or burst site or your, permanent disaster recovery site as well. So all of those options are available to you as a customer. But also from a HYCU point of view, you can use the native public clouds as well. We can transform those Nutanix workloads into an EC2 AWS machine or an Azure virtual machine instance if required on the fly as well. But typically what we see is customers utilizing the Nutanix ecosystem and using NC2 or using OVHcloud in their burst capacity in their data centers as well. And then what makes HYCU different? So we've probably covered this and we probably know most of this, but I just want to kind of make sure that we go back over this. And there are some things in there we haven't covered, as I mentioned. So we are purpose built for Nutanix, as we've kind of covered. Our sole focus was Nutanix when we first started. Obviously, we've grown that out into more workloads now, but we're still, as I mentioned in one of the earlier slides, Nutanix is deep within our DNA. It runs through our veins, and we're not going anywhere. We have a very close relationship with them. We are always agentless with zero plugins or zero appliances to deploy. So nothing to put inside of your data centers, no hardware, no agents, no plugins to do. So we don't want to put any of those legacy components into data centers because a lot of people are trying to remove data center components, so we don't want to add any more hardware. And the more agents we add into our virtual machines, the more risk we carry. I'm not saying it's going to happen every time, but look at the CrowdStrike incident that happened whenever that was last year sometime. That was, CrowdStrike are a very, very well run company, very well organized and very well revered in the industry for cybersecurity, but they had one mistake that was on all of these agents in those virtual machines, and it caused a problem, right? So suddenly we have 3, 4, 5, 6 agents on all of our virtual machines. The likelihood of that happening increases exponentially with all those different agents we have. We have that native application discovery, and the one piece I'm really keen for everyone to understand is RTO assurance. In most other backup products, you'll see your RPO. Absolutely. You'll report, okay, every backup was taken every 24 hours, every 12 hours, whatever it may be, whatever you've assigned. But most time with RTO, it's a guessing game. Maybe people will restore every one VM every week and then calculate that up by, 100 VMs they've got in their environment and go, yep, it's going to take us 15, 20, 50 hours to restore this data, whatever it may be. But inside of HYCU, and if we get time at the end, I will show you this inside the demo, we can actually give you your RTO for individual workloads. So you know how long those are going to take to restore. So you can do accurate reporting, accurate measurements, and make sure you're in compliance all of the time. We can offer rapid and cost-effective disaster recovery, so DR to AWS, NC2, and Azure bare metal instances, but also into OVHcloud as well, which is becoming increasingly popular with our customers as well. And we have a single UI for all the Nutanix workloads. And then here I've added plus SaaS, which leads me on to the next slide, is we're talking primarily about Nutanix here, but I just want to make sure we understand that we don't just cover Nutanix in its entirety. We cover all of that hybrid cloud infrastructure. So if it is VMware, Dell, Nutanix, AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, whatever, all those things on that you can see. We cover all of that hybrid cloud infrastructure, the things you would expect most data protection vendors to cover. Maybe not all of it, but we cover the most. And we start moving into our modern cloud apps and services. This is where the the vendors start dropping away of what they do cover. So Azure instances, Google Compute Engine, EC2 instances, yet most organizations and vendors do cover those. When we start looking at things like AWS Lambda and AWS IAM policies and parameter stores, that's where we start moving away. And things like Google Cloud BigQuery for AI workloads. We're the only vendor in the world to cover Google BigQuery. And we start moving into modern clouds, apps and services. So things like Jira, Salesforce, GitHub, GitLab, Box, iManage, all these big hitting SaaS um, applications that hold critical information for most organizations. Hardly any vendors, if any at all, cover those workloads. Yet HYCU does. So whereas everyone else has, maybe 10, 15, 20 SaaS applications combined across all of them, we have 80 plus integrations across the whole hybrid cloud infrastructure. So we're streets ahead when it comes to modern cloud and modern apps as well. And all of this data, more importantly, can be backed up to OVH's cloud S3 storage, their object storage. So you can take all of that data that you have in SaaS apps, modern cloud, in PaaS, IaaS, or in your hybrid cloud infrastructure, and put that back under your control, back under your remit, in your geographies, in your sovereignty, in OVH Cloud object storage as well. So again, when we come back to our principles, taking control of your data. So this is data that typically is stored in a SaaS app in wherever they host it, probably AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, wherever it may be. But we're taking that data, taking it back under our control and putting it into a bucket in our local region. Super important for data sovereignty and make sure we store backups where we want to and have control over that data. So last slide for me, data protection for Nutanix and beyond. So we can help you discover, visualize your data estate with a tool called rgraph. I haven't had time to go into that today, but if you are interested, if you Google HYCU rgraph, you'll find the link, sign up. It's an amazing visualization tool to see what is and isn't protected in your environment. We can protect all workloads with secure, bulletproof backups. We recover your applications and data with one click. Super simple, super easy to use. And we can move your workloads anytime, anywhere, to any region. And on that note, I'm going to pass over to Frank. So thank you, Frank, for being for being a bystander for a bit. I'm just going to pass you over to Frank to cover the OVH piece and their unique offering with HYCU and Nutanix.
Yes, thanks a lot. So just a quick overview of what we are doing at OVHcloud, and if you don't know us, so we are a global cloud provider. We are worldwide. We have worldwide data centers, and we offer public cloud stack. So like we were talking about object storage part, but we have instances, Kubernetes part, DB as a service, and so on this universe. We have a private cloud, like we mentioned early with Nutanix part, but we offer the VMware environment too. Web cloud and bare metal cloud. So bare metal, it's like you can build your own solution, bare metal. For example, like a repository for your backup. It could be a solution too. You can even use other solution like Scality to build your own object storage if you want to manage it end to end. So everything is you can do everything with this bare metal cloud and PaaS solution that I mentioned a little bit with a public cloud offering. So yes, just to sum it up on the Nutanix part. So like we were saying, with Nutanix at OVHcloud, you can deploy your Nutanix stack and use it as you want. You can use our license that we provide, or you can even bring your own license. You will have a large range of bare metal that you can use and you can build your clusters. And here you can see the footprint that we have worldwide. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you want to talk more about the Nutanix part. And yes, like we were saying, so we build our IQ solution. So we talk a lot with IQ part and to develop our way to implement this solution. So like we choose IQ because it's a seamless integration with Nutanix that Chris was presented to you before. It's a pre-configured environment, so it's an appliance that you deploy and everything it's ready to use. It's a secure deployment. Uh, we manage the offering with a predictability price, so meaning that you purchase pack that are displayed here, and you can use the consumption of the pack as you want. And we have a large partner ecosystem that you can rely on if you need to build, some architecture like Chris were mentioning for disaster recovery, for backup, for lift and shift solution to our Nutanix part, or even manage your HYCU solution if you want some managed services to manage every backup job and every aspect of a HYCU solution. We have partners that can help you to build this kind of solution. And yes, so we talk about the object storage. Here it's just a summon up of what you can use. Our object storage, it's qualified with IQ, so you can use, like we said, for immutability and everything that we offered. And like I was saying, so you can build your backup solution using our object storage. So exporting to copy to another region or directly to our object storage that you have on premise site with your Nutanix cluster. You can even use it to migrate your workload to our solution. And just keep in mind that we are at OVHcloud, our object storage, it's free of cost for API access. So it's like a game changer, I will say, for if we compare with other cloud providers. So don't hesitate again if you want to use it or to try it with IQ and back up some workload or some data to our object storage. Reach out to us.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point, frankly, mentioned is the APIs and those types of things. They're all the kind of the hidden costs, right? So everyone looks at the per gig per month cost, right? And you're incredibly competitive when I've looked across the market, even just at that. But then the fact, if you go into the calculators, I've done this when I've been sizing customers at previous lives and things I've been doing, is they go, how many API requests are you going to make per day? And you're like, I don't know if it's one or a million, right, or a billion. I literally have no ideas, and that can massively change your bill at the end of the month, right? And you only really know
Mm,
when you get the bill, right? So having that kind of price predictability that you mentioned, I think is super important. It's one of those massively hidden costs. It's so hard to calculate. Well, I think it's impossible to calculate in my own opinion. I've never been able to do it successfully. You kind of have to just hope for the best, put an extremely high number in and hope the customer agrees, and then hopefully it's not that big. That's the way I've done it before anyway. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that point was highlighted because I think it is super important that gets covered.
Yes, and one thing about that, so even when we talk about immutability, so immutability add more a call API to the engine. So yes, if you want to use immutability, and you should use it, here it's free for this purpose. So.
Yeah, amazing. Again, another hidden cost that we can
Mm.
avoid.
Okay, and our integration, so here we just have two quick dashboard of our control panel. So you see that we have IQ services that it needs to be activated, for example, and you have two packs of 25 VMs that was purchased, and you purchase the pack, and after that you are on the control panel, and you can download the license key and use it on your own IQ solution that you have built on top of our Nutanix, for example, stack.
Yeah, and that's the level of integration. It's not just a set of servers, right, and that you then go and get a license key and it's just a paper process, right? This is real integration and development to make sure this super seamless, super easy to use. Again, matching the Nutanix HYCU principles with OVH Cloud as well. So you can see why we have such synergy in the marketplace and why people love to use these types of solutions because they get everything in one place from OVH, but it's all literally in one place, right? They can deploy their Nutanix, deploy their HYCU, pay for Nutanix, pay for HYCU, all through this place and control it all from one place. It's such a seamless solution. And we're starting to see the synergy and starting to see customers flock to this type of thing because it does take, you get all the advantages of the hyperscale and the really well-known like AWS and Azure, right? You get all the advantages without all those hidden costs and the complexities and all those things that come along with it that we've all been burnt by before. So what's the time? So 40. Okay, so we'll do a very quick demo. I won't do a deep dive, just because I don't want to keep people for absolutely ages. So let me just switch screens into my demo environment. Okay, it's still logged in as well. Right, so hopefully everyone can see my my screen,
Yes.
which is yep,
Mm.
perfect. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation, Frank. So this is HYCU. So you can see this is our hybrid cloud edition that's purpose built for Nutanix that we've mentioned. So this is our dashboard. So super simply, super easy. We can see that we've got virtual machines or applications, and we can some nice dashboards. Again, customizable for every use case. But you can see I'm 100% compliant. I've got 86% protected, so only 14% of my virtual machines unprotected. This is a lab environment, so you'll see that there is some errors and some stuff that gets thrown up every now and again. But you can just see on a real-time environment. I mean, this compliance was 100% a minute ago, and you can see now it's just dropped to 100. So things are happening live time in this environment that are changing. So if you come into our virtual machines here, you can, or let me start at sources and work from there. So if we come up to here, we look at our sources, and we can add hypervisors, cloud, file servers, and servers. So hypervisors here, you can see we've got Nutanix, ESX on top of Nutanix, and you can see here that we're automatically seeing that we're using Prism Central or vCenter, and we're also using NDB as well. So again, we've automatically discovered these things. It's not something you need to configure or tell Haiku what to do. We're saying you give us the information, we'll discover, and we'll do things that we know need to be done for that. Again, the same with cloud and file. I haven't had any cloud in here, but file servers. This is file servers, but it could also be object storage. So if you wanted to store production data in OVH's S3, for instance, you can back it up using Haiku and put it wherever you want, like maybe another region, or you could do it in back onto on-premise or Nutanix on fan files, wherever else you want to store it, right? So even if there's production data in S3 or file storage, you can then back that up. And then if we have any physicals, you can add them in here as well. So super easy to do. Just click add. You know, everything's wizard based. Everything's in that intelligently simple that I mentioned before. So once you've given us your credentials to your Prism Central, whatever it may be, we obviously find all your virtual machines for you and catalog them. And then here you can see that we've got the names, the source, the policies, everything else, as you'd imagine here. So if we look at the policy, this is where I'm going to say most of the magic happens, but this is where most the configuration is done. I mean, I'll just take any one of these. Let's take a gold one, for instance. Let me edit our policy. So everything here is designed to be in one place, like a one-stop shop to build everything you need for data protection. So whereas in typical legacy products, you would have a policy, everything's policy driven, right? Of course it is. But you have a policy, but then you have to assign that policy to a job, and then you have to schedule that job. And if you want that job to run every 12 hours, you have to schedule it twice in a day and run those calendars. And then you end up with 5,000 jobs for 200 VMs because you're trying to back up things in certain ways and then have a replica job and a validate. Everything just gets really messy and you get that kind of backup fatigue of managing all of that. We're trying to take that all away and have everything in one policy. So you see, I've got quite a few policies in here because it's a dev environment. We play around with it and we do things for different customers and to show them. But you can see I haven't even got that many still. But we have a goal, so we're backing up every 4 hours and we want to recover every 4 hours. So you can see our options here. I want to do a backup. Yes, I do. Do I want to do a copy? Do I want to archive? Do I want to do a fast restore? Or do I want to auto assignment and deployed? So it's very simple, like a pick a mix of essentially like, do I want to add archiving? Yes or no. Do I want to add fast restore? The fast restore piece is the instant restore from Nutanix snapshots that we've mentioned earlier in the webinar. And then in here we decide how often do you want your. So essentially, this is aligning technical and business. So your RPO and your RTO, and then your compliance. How long do I need to keep it for? So RPO, I want to back up every 4 hours. We don't have to tell us when, right? We'll just make sure it happens every 4 hours. You don't have to schedule this. And the key piece here is recover within 4 hours. So we'll tell you if you're not be able to recover this workload within 4 hours, and that will kick you out of compliance. And all those dashboards you saw that nice and green will be nice and red. Typically in other solutions, you will not get your RTO option. You'll just get RPO option, or how often do you want this backup to run, or when do you want it to run. And then we've got our backup chains and all the other bits and pieces that are super technical, but essentially that's all you need to do. And then if you wanted to have an archive, you essentially add an archiving policy. So I want a weekly archive, you add an archiving policy. So it's super easy to do. And you just say, oh yeah, I want to archive. Yes, I want to copy. And if you don't want to add a copy, we then add another copy. So where do you want to copy it to? How often, etc. So you can see it's, as I said, a bit like that pick and mix. You pick and choose what you want, and then we just adjust the wizard to make sure that you're doing things in the correct way. And then if I show you what that looks like, so if I come back to my virtual machine here and I pick up any of these, I'll pick a random one. Let's pick up this one here, for instance. So you can see here I'm not in compliance. And that would tell me why I'm not in compliance. But if I took the one from yesterday, you can see here. So I'm backing up every day, and the time since last backup was 23 hours and 44 minutes. So we schedule it, and it completed before the 24 hours was up. And we need to recover within 1 day, and actually gives us an estimated time for recovery on this particular workload is 1 minute. So well within our 1 day RTO that we've set, which is amazing. And if we look at our storage targets, and I'm not going to make this too long, so I'm going to flip to some questions in a second. And this is just to kind of give you a brief overview to kind of look at and feel the feel of it. And if anyone is a Nutanix user, you'll see that the HYCU UI looks very, very similar to the Prism UI, and that's done on purpose, right? So there's zero learning curve for Nutanix administrators to come in here, and it's very simple. Everything's laid out in the same manner as well. So if you want to add a target, we support pretty much everything. You can see we've got our OVH storage here that we've added in and are backing up to. And we've got compression enabled on it as well. But you can add any target anywhere, any place you like as well. So it's not down to just the ones you can see on the list here, but pretty much anywhere. And you can see we've got immutability on our data domain here. Google Cloud, we've got immutability and retention lock stored as well. So I'm gonna stop the demo. It will know it was a very brief whistle stop tour, but I'm conscious of everyone's time and I'm conscious that we might have some questions in the chat. So I'm gonna just flick back to presentation. Hopefully it's still there. There we go. And then flip over to some questions. So let's see if we do have any questions in the chat. So one person has asked, is it possible to install the HYCU appliance on Proxmox? So at the moment we don't support Proxmox. So we support VMware, Nutanix, and Azure Local as the three hypervisors we currently support. Um, Proxmox, not something we're actively pursuing right now, but it's something we're keeping an eye on. You know, the typical profile of our customer isn't deploying Proxmox at the scale required at the moment, but we are keeping an eye on the marketplace and looking for that. So yeah, we're keeping an eye on that one.
Uh, uh, yes, I think Chris, the question was to host, the appliance IQ on Proxmox. Not entirely sure that they want to back up, Proxmox workloads.
Oh,
But
if was
uh, but
installed the
it's the
HYCU.
same, I think, for your answer. But
Yeah, I don't think you can. So we've obviously developed the product to run on certain hypervisors and in certain template formats as well. So whether you're deploying it on VMware, it's a different way to deploy it on Azure Local and then Nutanix as well. So it wouldn't be a supported infrastructure. I'm gonna hazard a guess that our product team would say no to that one.
so
And it's not something I've ever heard before. But
mm. So to separate, production, they could use VMware to host the IQ instances. But
yeah, they can use VMware. You can use Azure Local. You could use a different um yeah, so yeah, to install on Proxmox with backup AHV clusters. So yeah, it's not something we've ever tried to install on there. I'll ask our product team and see if it's possible. But I would say um to separate production infrastructure because we store things in object storage, it's already separated as well, and we can obviously put that immutability on. If you're after something like super secure, we support the Dell Cyber Vault, so you could put stuff into a Dell Cyber Vault. You could run that in on bare metal in OVH's data centers if you wanted to. Um, you could run it on VMware. So we have options for separation, or even place it into the cloud environment or whatever. So it depends on the separation. But yeah, we don't often. So we actually have a customer story of a cyber attack hitting Nutanix. They got hold of everything, but apart from the HYCU controller, and because HYCU could then reinstantiate everything, they essentially built it back up again from scratch, and we still have Nutanix snaps we could recover from, and we recovered the customer back from those Nutanix snaps almost instantly as well. So, and as I mentioned earlier, so we are incredibly secure. We're used in the US in federal environments a lot. Um, so we have a lot of federal customers in the US using us. Because we are super secure, you can really lock down the appliance as hard as you need to, and that's how we can achieve those DISA STIGs that we have, FIPS 140-2 compliance, um, all those different compliance certifications. So we are one of the most secure data protection vendors out there on the marketplace as it stands. So we be certifying Data Core Swarm as an object store. So we do have a self-validation. So if you are a customer and you're using Data Core, you could get in touch with them and they can get in touch with us and they can validate themselves against our platform. Obviously, there's certain things we would have to test and make sure, but there's just like a self-validation, self-test that they can go through. Um, so that's probably the best way. So it's not something we don't actively go out and look for all the different versions of object store and try and certify against them. If we have a customer or a partner interested, we run the self-validation process. Is something that we normally do if we want to. Most of the time, they pass with flying colors because normally they're using the S3 protocol. But typically, it's sometimes with the object lock, they work in different ways and certain things. But we do have a test criteria to validate against. So, yeah, if you do have a customer, or if you're a partner, or if you are a customer of Data Core Swarm, check out with them and go from there. So data domain, yeah. So store once is supported, but not with the Catalyst protocol. So the question was data. I saw data domain was supported, but no references to HP store once. We have a very close alliance with Dell. So we're part of their ETC program, so their Extended Technology Catalog program, or Extended Technology Complete, I think it is ETC. So we have a very close alliance. So we support HP store once, but we just haven't developed against their Catalyst protocol. Um, but you can, if you do have store once, you could still use this as the for generic store. So that's still supported. And do we plan to back up more hypervisors like Proxmox? Yes. So we're on roadmaps we're looking at the moment, and obviously we don't publish publicly our roadmap, but yes, we're constantly on the lookout for new workloads, new ways of supporting more customers and helping them back up data the Haiku way, if you want to call it that, but you know the simple way. So it's always on the lookout as the hypervisor landscape kind of shapes out over the next year or so. I think the major players will probably come to the surface, and we'll start looking at what that looks like. I think at the moment it's quite a tumultuous place where there's a lot of different places that people are putting stuff and testing. I think still think we're to see that, but yeah, we constantly evaluate the marketplace. We constantly listen to our customers. Yeah, obviously I can feed back. We've heard Proxmox 2 or 3 times in this, so I will definitely feed that back to our product teams, and I'm sure they're already looking at it and researching, if not testing some of the stuff already. So yeah, we obviously we're here to serve our customers and we're here to serve the market. So yeah, the Proxmox seems to be a particular popular one on today's call. I think last time I did a webinar, it was the Red Hat virtualization came up a few times. Then it was Apache Cloud Stack after before that. So you can see there's so many different varieties of hypervisor popping up since the VMware acquisition happened. But yeah, we constantly keep an eye on the marketplace, and um, build our product to best serve our customers and our partners as well. Perfect. So unless anyone, oh, there are some more questions. When HYCU is using multiple targets in the backup policy, how does it work? Does it use one until full and then switches to the next one, or spreads backups evenly across assigned targets? Great question. So you can choose, have multiple backup targets, and essentially you can let HYCU choose. So what we will do is we'll choose the best target to suit the policy that you've given us. So you can give us all of your backup targets across all of your policies, and we will choose the best backup target that suits your requirements. So it's great for capacity and performance management. So if I'm going to do an example for a customer, they might have some really expensive flash storage that they've used previously because that's the only way they could hit the RPO and RTO with some legacy workloads, right, or some legacy backup providers. And then they've got some older deduplicating devices, maybe a data domain or whatever, or a brand new data domain, and then they've got some object storage, right? Typically in the past, to put workloads in each one of those buckets or each one of those places, it would be a manual effort, right? So I need my tier ones to land on my flash, I need my tier twos to land on data domain, then I need some object storage or whatever happens, I want to replicate, whatever it might be. But with HYCU, what you could do is let us select for you and say, actually, you need an RPO of this and an RTO of this, so on this policy, and we'll make sure that we put the backups into the right place to make sure that you can recover within your RPO and RTO requirements, and you'll stay within compliance. So that if they need to go on flash storage to meet your 1 hour RTO, we'll make sure that it gets put on the right tier of storage, right? So we can do that then. And then the second question is, how does HYCU allow replication to another cluster on a different site? So we can obviously using the robo stuff. You can use Nutanix replication, and then we can back up those replicas, or we can copy the backups to a secondary target on another site as well, and then restore from there. So multiple different ways of doing it, or you can have a completely separate policy backing up workloads to a separate place on a different site as well. So multiple different ways of doing it, and it would be down to the individual use case. As Frank's mentioned earlier, there's so many different ways of configuring HYCU to get it to what you need, and it will depend on the use case of especially in the OVHcloud, you can do production to production, production to DR, and all those different places, tertiary sites, all that kind of thing. So, multiple different ways of doing it, either using the HYCU native replication. We also support data domain replication. So if you have data domain, you can replicate using their replication technology. We can use Nutanix, or we can use our own replication technology as well, or our backup copy technology. So multiple different ways of achieving the same goal. So I think that's all the questions. We are pretty much out of time as well. So if there are any more questions, you can reach me, chris.rogers@haiku.com. So if any more questions come through in the meantime, or email me direct, and we can sort that out. But Frank, thank you very much for joining us, and hope everyone on the call got something out of this. And if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to reach out. We will be getting a copy of the presentation and the recording afterwards as well. So you'll have that to share with your colleagues and friends as well. So thank you very much, and Frank, thank you for your time and thank you for
Yes.
insights.
Thanks a lot. Yes, bye.
Thank you, everybody. Catch you on the next one.
Yes, bye.